great pleasure to talk about choosing a journal to publish in and avoiding predatory journals. I love talking about books and journals and all library stuff. I've been working in libraries for about 40 years at 3 different universities. And I think teaching faculty and librarians are increasingly getting questions about how to choose a journal. Since we order so many journals for the library, librarians very commonly get questions. I'm not the world's leading research expert, but I have looked at a lot of journals. We order them from the library. For the library, the number of titles and business models are often bewildering. Since about 1950, we've had basically the same submission system for peer-reviewed journals. It's just moved online. But COVID has challenged that, and we're seeing new challenges in picking a journal and choosing from all the options that are available. Of course, I can't tell you or your student where to publish, and I can't guarantee that they'll accept your manuscript, but we can offer a framework and decision aids to help inform a good decision about where to submit. Here's our website. You can Google WKU Libraries and go to Research Guides. And I have posted a copy of my PowerPoint and some additional resources such as rubrics on this page. My boss, Laura Delancey, who some of you may know, set up this site and we edited it together. And most large academic libraries have one of these. And this will summarize the information that I'll be telling you. So you can go to this research guide and look again at some of what I'm telling you today. Now I have a poll, and Joe is going to post the poll. Do you often get questions from colleagues or students about choosing a journal to publish your work? Is our poll working, Joe?
It is. We have 3 responses. Anybody else want to put a response out there? Here we go.
Oh, okay.
All right. I'm going to I'll end the polling and it'll show our results. So it's kind of a quick one, but here we go.
Yes, for 100%. And everybody else is just being timid or never gets questions. This is a common question that we have. And there is a website that you may already be familiar with called thinkchecksubmit.org to give you a systematic way of thinking about journals that you're planning to submit to. It was developed by a coalition from across scholarly communications in response to concerns about deceptive publishing practices. However, the best way to avoid predatory journals is to act proactively to select a good journal for your work. And then by default, you'll avoid most predatory journals. Think, and editors suggest you think about your audience, your goals, and what journal characteristics might reach that audience. Then you can select a possible journal in 1 to 2 alternates. Who is my audience? If it's your professional association, I would submit to the journal for my professional association. If it's your peers, ask them a good place to submit. I can pick a suitable journal and usually avoid predatory publishers just by thinking about who my audience is and who would benefit from reading my paper. What are my goals? Sorry, my boss wants me to publish more. It's not a specific enough goal. I may want to share experiences or research with my colleagues. I may want to share knowledge with the community, meet evaluation, promotion, or tenure requirements, or meet a grant requirement for publication. In that case, I may be required to publish open access or to meet certain other requirements. Oops, need to back up one. Here we go. When I look at my audience and goals, then I can make up a checklist for evaluating journals and find about 3 journals that might meet my goals, my first choice and a couple of alternatives. I have lots of learning experience from making mistakes in submitting to the wrong journal. Number one, editors say the scope of the journal and the methodology of articles that they accept should meet what the journal requires or asks for. For example, I submitted an article that was a case study to an evidence-based practice journal. After 2 years, I finally admitted they were never going to publish it and submitted it to a more suitable journal. So check carefully the scope of the journal and the methodology that they accept. What library databases index the journal? If you care about prestige, what impact factor do you want the journal to have? Do you care about what quartile it is in its discipline? Open access options, the most common, include gold and green. Do you care about speed of publication or selectivity? This is how you can fit your article in the best journal. To see if it's a good fit, the library has a lot of good places to check. First, check the journal website. Does my article fit the scope? And then it's a good idea to look at 3 to 4 issues. Do the style, organization, and methodology of the articles accepted by the journal fit? If it says it comes out every 2 months, does it actually come out then? If the latest article that's posted online is 2019, you might want to look elsewhere. Matchers can be used to identify possible journals. Some of those you may all be familiar with, and some you may not. I like to use those. Sometimes they're helpful, and some of their suggestions are way out in left field. I can also search a library subject database for title keywords. I can even limit to peer-reviewed so that I can select peer-reviewed journals. I can check the title list for a subject database, or I can email the editor to gauge interest. Another thing I can do is to ask a subject librarian. I have a link to the page where all our subject specialists are. We have a lot of experience with journals, selecting journals and evaluating journals, so we're familiar with most of the ones in our liaison fields. This is a screenshot from the Journal of the Medical Library Association. Most of them will tell me whether or not they're peer-reviewed, and I want to read carefully. I've been an offender on this before, and make sure that my article fits the scope of what they say they accept. And I need to read through this very carefully, and if it's not clearly in scope, it's probably a good idea to submit somewhere else. Editors are in agreement that one of the most common reasons for a manuscript to get rejected is that it doesn't exactly meet the scope of the journal. Another way I can select a journal is to find a library database, go to Google WKU Libraries, go to databases, and if I don't know what the journal, what the database is for my discipline, then I can pull down the subject menu and select it. If I'm a nursing researcher, I probably want my chosen journal to be indexed in CINAHL. If I'm a biomedical researcher, I want it to appear in PubMed. If I'm in the biology department, I may want it to appear in Web of Science. Indexing is not only a quality marker for a journal, but also your chosen audience is more likely to read it and cite it if it's discoverable in those databases. Every library database has a journal list. Journals currently indexed in Medline is a very high quality list. Medline is a subset of PubMed. It's the curated subset that's actually indexed for Medline by the U.S. National Library of Medicine. Some of these journals are hard to get published in, but inclusion in this list is usually an indicator of high quality. We subscribe to Web of Science, as you probably know, and this has a master journal list that also has a good deal of information about science-related journals. For example, here is the entry, a screenshot of the entry for the Journal of the American Medical Association. Tells you the ISSN, how hard it is to get published, where the site is, and also the impact factor. I can click Journal Citation Reports. Like many libraries, we had to cancel the journal citation report, which is a separate piece. However, if I click here, I can see the 2018 impact factor for the Journal of the American Medical Association. I think it was 23, which is very high. This is in the high range. Of course, it's also hard to get published here. So this is a way I can look up the impact factor if I'm curious about it, using the Web of Science Master Journal list. Citation metrics, there's a couple of common ones. One is the Journal Citation Report's impact factor. It's related to Web of Science. We don't subscribe to it, but I can find it from the Master Journal list. Also in Web of Science search results, I can click View Journal Impact for the 2019 quartile. Q1 is considered the most desirable because it says that the particular journal is in the top quartile for its field. I take citation metrics with a grain of salt, but if you like to use these are some of the most common ones. Scimago is a big competitor, and we don't subscribe to Scopus that Scimago is based on. Scopus and Web of Science are big competitors as general science indexes, and most libraries subscribe to one or other, and some big libraries are fortunate enough to subscribe to both. We don't have Scopus, but we do have their journal ranking, which is free on the web. This ranks and gives the quartile of the journal. Q1 is considered the top. Here again, I take these with a grain of salt, because sometimes it'll have highly ranked journals that I've barely even heard of and I don't agree with. Eigenfactor is another one based at University of Washington. It gauges the value and influence of the journal and includes what's called alt metrics, or page views and social media mentions. It color codes PubMed results by influence. I can select a journal if I want to come up with less well-known alternatives by searching a subject library database. For example, pretend I'm a nurse researcher and I have a manuscript about opioids in the emergency room. I can type in the general subject that I want to publish on, limit to peer-reviewed, and limit to the journal subset nursing. Then click search. And in CINAHL, I can come up with several high-quality journals that publish articles like mine. This technique very often works for finding alternative journals that you might not have heard of, especially if your first one that you know about does not work out. Manuscript matchers, as well as databases and title lists, are good ways to identify suitable journals. I really like this one called Jane, or Journal Author Name Estimator. This is based on PubMed. You may have used it before. It's very widely used. What you do is cut and paste your projected title and abstract into the search box and click search, and it will match your search to projected journals in PubMed that it thinks are likely to publish your research. Some of the things are way out in left field, but some of them are pretty interesting and will give you some good ideas. I've used it with success several times. EndNote also has a manuscript matcher, and this is part of our Web of Science database. You can click a tab. You have to create an account. I think they want to get your contact information, but that's free too. And there's a new entry into the field called Scholarly Publishing Information Hub. It comes out of Vanderbilt. I haven't used that one much yet, but it seems to be very helpful and is very impressive at first glance. Here's how Jane works. Several years ago, I wrote a paper with Terry Dean called Mapping the Literature of Dental Hygiene. And let's pretend that I hadn't published this and I wanted to know where to publish it. I'm going to copy and paste my title into the search box. Then I click search, and like magic, It gets me a list of journals that might publish my article. Have any of y'all used this before? It color codes the ones that are high quality. Medline indexed is an indicator of quality. High quality open access means it's a vetted journal list. And some of these are not going to publish a library article, but this highlighted yellow one is the one that actually published it. So if I didn't know that it would publish my article, I could have made a guess and found out, and this would have been a good place to submit. Most of the major publishers also have a manuscript matcher. Everybody wants to publish in a very prestigious journal, but say you're in medical sciences, I could use this Elsevier journal finder to find perfectly good, reputable journals that may be newer or lesser known. With a major publisher, this may be less of a risk because if the journal goes out of business, then my article will still be posted on the website. So this is a good place where you can look for lesser known journals if you have to find an alternative journal. Journal directories. We have one called Cobbles that's a database subscribed to by the library, and it covers nursing and healthcare administration. It has a lot of information about particular journals that you can publish in. The only problem is that it covers only about 11,000 journals, which is not a whole lot. And it's worth a try, but there's a lot of perfectly good journals that are not listed in Cobbles. There's also the Nursing Author and Editor Journals Directory. It's a .com site, but it is reputable. It's put out by the International Academy of Nursing Educators that has the rather unfortunate acronym of INANE. It's open access on the World Wide Web, tells you whether or not the journal is peer-reviewed, and journals that appear here or in Cobbles are vetted, so they're considered reputable. Journals in social work and related disciplines is a similar list. There used to be one for public health that came out of Yale, but it hasn't been updated. And there was also one that came out of the Medical Library Association for public health. As far as I know, there's not a current one that lists journals in public health and tells you advice about publishing in them. Ulrich's Web is a comprehensive periodicals directory available on campus only. That's a subscription service, and there's the link right there. It has periodicals worldwide. It has just about everything you've ever heard of and some you haven't. Tells you whether or not it's peer-reviewed and how many people will read it. Another question you might be asking, is open access right for me? Unless you've been under a rock since COVID, it's just turned the scholarly publishing world on its head. Since about 2017, the majority of scientific articles that are published have some form of open access. There's a lot of advantages to it. Everybody likes open access. It disseminates new findings rapidly. It benefits researchers in limited resource settings. My institution or grant may mandate open access. It reaches a wider audience. It may increase citations. The open access is sort of funny. It goes by color names. Green means I have to put it up there myself or self-archiving. Examples are Top Scholar. I have all my publications in Top Scholar and I highly recommend it. You put it in there post-publication, so it's not considered submitting to another place. About 70% of major publishers will let you put your stuff in Top Scholar. In some cases, I can put the typeset version in, and they all have various rules. Sometimes I have to use the Word file of the final accepted version. It really bumps up your page views and usage. I have 14 very specialized health science library articles, and they've been downloaded over 5,000 times from Top Scholar. So you can tell it really increases your readership. A lot of our Western researchers have their information on Top Scholar. You can also post your student work there. Another green self-archiving service is called PubMed Central. The way a lot of things get in here, if you're publishing with an NIH grant, there's what's called the NIH Open Access Rule that's been around for about 15 years. And you have to post a free copy on PubMed Central within about a year. And I have the link on the next page to that policy. There's about 6 million articles in here. And this is a source of great confusion because PubMed Central is not the same as PubMed. PubMed Central is full text. PubMed is not, it's full text linked, and they overlap greatly. PubMed Central is much smaller, and this is how some of the, unfortunately, some predatory journals leak into PubMed. So you do have to be aware of a few things in PubMed Central. NIH cannot make authors publish in high quality journals, although they do have various ways to encourage them to do so. Gold open access is usually on the publisher website, and you can share the final version, usually through a Creative Commons license, sometimes non-commercial and sometimes even commercial reuse is allowed. Either it's a fully open access journal funded by an academic institution or author payments, or a hybrid journal, a traditional paid subscription journal, and you pay extra to open your article. Traditional, of course, a lot of the scientific literature, varying by discipline, is still barricaded behind a paywall. And if you work at Western, you're lucky because our interlibrary loan service is very good. They can get you an electronic copy within a day or two at no cost to you. But researchers across the world are not quite so fortunate. Some hybrid open access journals are paywalled, but you pay a fee to open an individual article. Gold open access, there's often a fee for. Green is free, but you have to put it up yourself, and it's more restrictive. Examples of green open access are PubMed Central, and especially for WKU people, Top Scholar. This is called a digital repository, and institutions across the country have them. Todd Seguin is our Top Scholar person, and he can help you get your published articles onto Top Scholar. They'll show up in Google searches, and they'll show up in OneSearch on WKU Library's homepage. And it really bumps up the influence and the usage of your articles that you've published. So I highly recommend it. There's a site called Sherpa Romeo, and Todd can do this. You can look up the journal open access policies. Most publishers will let you put your stuff on Top Scholar post-publication, and tells you whether or not you have to pay. Open access caveats. In the gold or most desirable open access model on the publisher website, the cost may shift to the author. Some professional associations do not charge for gold open access. In the case of a COVID article, if you write an article about COVID, the fees are usually waived. Most of you have noticed that COVID articles are usually free. And there's a huge readership, and about 40% of that readership is not COVID researchers. It's people like you and me. So that's sort of an interesting development. Gold open access fees are often waived for authors in less developed countries also. And groups of institutions, such as in California, are negotiating favorable agreements with gold open access publishers. This is sort of a moving target, and everybody likes open access, but we haven't figured a fair and equitable and sustainable business model to support open access. This next part is important. Predatory journals exploit the open access model. Most open access journals are not predatory, but most predatory journals are open access. And you might ask, why would somebody with a PhD fall for this? Before we answer that, here's a screenshot of Top Scholar. I think I've got my slides out of order here. And this is where you can post copies free, post-publication, and you can talk to Todd Seguin about this. There's PubMed Central. I searched for WKU on PubMed Central, and there's over 1,000 articles. We've had the NIH open access rule for about 15 years or so, and at first it was widely disregarded, but now there's a large critical mass of material that's published by NIH-funded researchers on PubMed Central. There's a lot of good stuff on there, and it's discoverable on through Google searches. Funder-mandated open access. There's the NIH public access policy that tells you you have to put a free copy in PubMed Central within a year. Major publishers will increasingly submit your manuscript for you to PubMed Central. RoarMap is an international list of funders requiring open access. This is becoming particularly common in European countries. Increasingly, grant funders require some form of open access dissemination of research publications and data. You can also post data on Top Scholar or in institutional repositories. Gold open access funding. Some of the fees charged for open access, as you've probably found, are pretty shocking to the average person. Some, but not all, open access journals charge APCs or author publishing fees. The median fee was reported to be $2,600 in 2020. I talked to a librarian at a medical school in Florida that says a researcher showed her a bill for $11,500 from a journal Cell. This is an accepted practice, but fees are normally paid by grants or institutions, not individuals. This is not something you should expect to pay out of your pocket. If you have to pay it out of your pocket, you might go for green open access or a subscription journal. The term usually used is APCs, article processing charges. And here's another screenshot of all the colors. It gets really, really confusing, but gold and green are the most common ones. Platinum means it's gold that you don't have to pay for. I guess Santa Claus pays for it, or the Scholarly Society, or some sort of other funder. Open access journals, always check them out thoroughly. Remember, think, check, submit. How does a trusted journal look? It's published by a professional association or academic publisher. It has a clear email, phone, and physical address. It has an international standard serial number. It has a clear peer review process. It has expert editors who are easy to contact. It's indexed in major databases, for example, Medline and CINAHL for medical materials. Sorry, Google Scholar is not a database. However useful it is, it indexes absolutely everything. A trusted journal has a clear subject scope. It has quality writing, correct spelling and grammar, and articles have a DOI or digital object identifier. Here's a trusted journal website. This one is Taylor and Francis. Scholarly societies, of course, publish a lot of trusted journals. It has an ISSN. It says where it's indexed. You can go and check if you're not sure about it. Has metrics, aims and scopes, instructions for authors, journal information, editorial board. They're real editors and they're people who do major work in that field, advertising and conflict of interest policy. You might also look at the acceptance rate, peer review process, and the turnaround time. This can be important if you're up for tenure next year. especially poorly funded journals or ones run by one or two people, or some journals have a bad reputation in that respect, may hang on to your article for a year or two and it never gets published and it's hard to get back. So this particular entry is from Cobbles, but the journal websites will probably tell you that too. We don't use the term whitelist and blacklist anymore because of racial connotations, but here's some open access vetted journal lists. One is the DOAJ, or Directory of Open Access Publishers. And here's the URL. Of course, it's free online. The OASPA is another one. This lists vetted journals, tells you how much they charge to publish, if anything. And this is also a searchable list here. This is the Predatory Journal. And this is the guy you don't want to meet in the dark alley. Unfortunately, it is not a binary quality. There's not one category of good journals and one category of predatory journals. You may be able to get away with publishing in a questionable journal. You may slip by with it, but they're taking advantage of you. Why are there predatory journals? They prioritize self-interest at the expense of scholarship and are characterized by false or misleading information, deviation from best editorial and publication practices, and so on and so forth. They exploit the open access, gold open access model and don't provide adequate peer review. Your article may either not be on there at all, or it may only be on their site intermittently. They can disappear and take your money and leave you with nothing in return. Now we have another poll. Joe, would you put up the poll? Do you often get emails from journals, publishers, conferences, or editorial boards you think are not reputable? And do you know anyone who has published in a predatory journal?
I'm not sure if Joe is there to man the poll, but I can say yes to both of those things. So yes.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
Can you see
Great.
results?
100%. I got 6 emails from predatory journals / publishers / conferences yesterday. Is that typical of what people get? That seems like an awful lot.
That seems excessive, I would say, but
Yeah. Maybe because I'm a librarian.
probably because you're a librarian, but they do send almost, I think it's faculty, at least when I was a regular faculty member, I would say at least almost daily.
Yeah. Another trick they pull on librarians is to try to get us to put a link on our library website on our research guides to their site so that it looks like a reputable place to publish. Okay, let me find my next slide here. Dear Dr. Carol Watwood, Journal of Pediatric Disorders and Neonatal Care provides an excellent opportunity. What's wrong with this? I don't have a doctorate. What kind of a website is .biz? I don't have any pediatrics credentials. How did these people get my name? I published an article with somebody in nursing several years ago on sources of literature in pediatric nursing. This is not the same thing as pediatrics, but it appeared in PubMed, and they harvested my information mechanically out of PubMed. Hit the delete key. Do not stop. Just don't go there. You'd think, why would anybody in their right mind do this? Some of them are not so obvious, and they will copy or mimic the names of reputable journals. They charge you less than legitimate open access, gold open access journals. They give you rapid peer review. They almost guarantee to take your paper, but there may be little or no peer review, and your article may never be put online or may only appear intermittently. If you accidentally publish with them, you may not be able to get it back. One poor guy in family medicine submitted to one, and he realized what he'd done. The title was similar to a legitimate journal. He tried to get it back, and they put it on their website without his permission. He submitted it innocently to another journal and got a citation for academic misconduct for submitting to a second journal when he didn't know that they had put it on the first one. So just don't do something like this that is openly predatory. Negative indicators, number one, are spam emails. You never heard of this person. Legitimate journals do put out calls for authors, but they're published by scholarly societies or well-known academic publishers. If it's indexed in Google Scholar, so what? So's everything else. The fee structure is non-transparent. It has a questionable editorial board, and recent articles are few or poor quality. Many of you have probably heard of Jeffrey Beals. He is or was a librarian at University of Colorado who tried to put up a list of predatory journals. In fact, I think he invented the term. So many people tried to sue him that he was forced to take it down. There's a new list called Stop Predatory Journals that has both journal and publisher questionable journal lists. And this has replaced Beals' list. I personally would think twice about publishing in any journal or by any publisher that's in this list. There's, by one estimate, more than 30,000 of these things that are either questionable or openly predatory. If you're in doubt, Google the publisher name or the journal name, look all down the page. This really works. Look for the words predatory, questionable, flaky, or fake. People that get taken in by these journals are really mad and they want to tell everybody on the web, and you can pick up on this. Journals that are not frankly predatory can be what's called gray publishing. They may be poorly resourced or irregularly published. They just won't be the best place to showcase your work. If they're not indexed in CINAHL or Medline, even though they're open access, if nobody reads them, then they may not get cited and they may not get seen and they may not be discoverable. This is called gray publishing sometimes. If you think and check and you see, I would write and cite this journal, I would read and cite this journal in my work. The journal is respected, is well known, or at least respected in my field. It's indexed in CINAHL or Medline. It's published by a reputable scholarly publisher or association. It's indexed in a major library database such as Web of Science, PubMed, Medline, CINAHL, or a similar one. The scope and subject and methodology of my manuscript fit the journal. The time for peer review meets my needs. The acceptance rate meets my needs. If I can answer yes to most or all of these, then I can click submit. Congratulations and thank you.
Well, that was great. That was so informative. Really appreciate your time with us on a Friday afternoon, Carol.
Certainly. I hope that's useful. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, are there any questions or anything in the chat, Joellen, that has popped up?
There is not currently.
Okay.
Anybody, I think they can raise their hands or just type something in the chat and I can relay it.
I don't have my, no, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's so useful and such useful information. Perhaps you'd be willing to do this for junior faculty each year, maybe in the fall as we have new faculty who start. Because I think, a lot of times you just don't know if people are emailing you, and especially when you're a junior faculty member, if you just had your dissertation finished and you're wanting to publish it, and then people are contacting you saying, publish your dissertation, and there's just a lot of misinformation out there. So I think this would be really good to do for our pre-tenure faculty. Maybe.
Certainly.
Great.
I had thought about doing it as an online interactive tutorial maybe too for we have been doing some of those, but we'll be glad to share our knowledge. So if you're in doubt about a journal, your subject liaison librarians will be glad to help you out, or some of your more senior colleagues.
Great. Yeah, I didn't realize there were tools and databases that you could use to help match your article to or what you're wanting to write, the topic area, to a particular journal. I guess, back in the days, so we rely on word of mouth and colleagues, and you learn which journals are the ones that are willing to publish your information. But that's great that those are tools now that are available. So I learned a lot from your presentation. So
good. There's just so many journals out there now, and especially if your first choice journal doesn't work out, or you have something, and even the regional and state journals, a lot of times they have a peer-reviewed section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was very interesting. So
we have one
Go ahead.
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If we have a question about a journal, would you be willing to assist us in?
Oh, certainly.
Oh, okay. So can they contact you personally, or is there like another method to reach you all in the libraries?
Email is the easiest way to reach me.
Okay.
My email address is on the front there. It's carol.watwood@wku.edu. I'm in 109 Cravens, and we're going back to work in May. I think I'm going back on the 25th. I don't have my calendar in front of me. So also on our library website, there's a link to make a research appointment with me, and I'll be glad to meet with you. I'm always glad to talk about journals and library resources. I don't see it as my role to say this is a good journal, publish in this one, but I can show you this says this, or I can say I personally wouldn't publish here, or you might want to consider this or ask this person. When you put a good deal of time into an article, I have not always done this myself, thought about the best place to publish, and does my manuscript really meet this, what this journal requires?
Right. And you said, you mentioned just to me before we started that you were going to post your slides on the library's website?
Yes, I already
from
did,
today?
as a matter of fact, yeah.
Okay.
I can show you if you'd like. I'll do a new share, and let's see if I can get up. I'll show you where that is. We have library research guides, and most libraries do this. And one of the questions that we get a lot of questions about is journals. Let me see if I can come up with a, oh shoot, Google search here. Let's see. I don't think I can get to it. I can't find Google, but just go to WKU Libraries and then Research Guides. And then there's a research guide on evaluating journals. We have research guides on a lot of other things connected to publishing, like citation guides and style manuals too. We have a guide to APA.
And I'll try to send that out. I'll find the website and send it out.
Oh, okay.
Whenever I share what we've done today. So.
Boy, I appreciate people coming here on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah. Yes, we have someone that says they appreciate all the help you've given in the past. And Dr. Kadali also mentioned that the grad school and research office would benefit from this kind of training. So
okay.
You're an excellent resource.
Be glad to do an online tutorial too, and journal selection. A lot of libraries have done that.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I think that's all that we had. I'm sorry, Dean Boster, were you saying something?
No, I just think it's a great tool. And I think that, these are the things too that advance so quickly that if you're, again, if you've been out of the game for a couple of years, haven't published something in a couple of years, or you're new to the university here too, things vary by different institutions. This is just really great information for a lot of people. And like I said, myself included. So thanks again for your time. And we will look forward to hopefully inviting you back to speak with us again in the fall. So, and maybe face to face. who knows? We'll see. So it was a pleasure to meet you. And thanks to everybody who attended in virtual space. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Okay, you too. I love talking about library stuff. You all have a good weekend. Stay
Thank
healthy.
you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.